I want you to take a second and just think about the smartphone sitting in your pocket, or maybe the one you're literally holding right now.
It's essentially an extension of ourselves at this point, right?
Exactly. And for years, we've all collectively treated our iPhones like these impenetrable fortresses. We operate under this assumption that Apple's walled garden makes us magically immune to the types of viruses and malware that constantly plague desktop computers.
Yeah, we have this false sense of total security on mobile.
Right. But today, we're doing a deep dive into what happens when the digital weapons built by the world's most advanced intelligence agencies somehow slip out of the shadows. What happens when they trickle down into the hands of everyday, financially motivated internet scammers?
And I'll tell you, it completely upends our fundamental assumptions about mobile security. Documents we're looking at today they're absolutely fascinating
Right.
and highly concerning.
Yeah, we have a great stack of sources today. We're pulling from a deeply technical threat intelligence report directly from Google, an urgent analysis from a mobile security firm called iVerify, and some excellent investigative reporting from Cyberscoop.
Which all point to the same structural shift in how cybercrime is operating.
Exactly. So our mission for this deep dive is to trace the bizarre, globe-trotting journey of an incredibly powerful iOS exploit kit called Karuna. We're going to explore how elite, nation-state-grade spyware moved down the cybercriminal food chain to become a tool for mass attacks, and, what this means for your own personal digital safety.
To really understand the sheer scale of what the Google Threat Intelligence Group discovered, we have to look at the timeline. They stumbled upon a massive exploit kit targeting Apple iPhones running iOS versions all the way from 13.0.
Which came out back in September 2019, by the way.
Right, all the way up to version 17.2.1, which was released in December 2023. That is an extraordinarily wide net for any mobile exploit to cast.
It's unheard of. And what really stands out to me in the Google report is how the researchers even figured out what they were looking at.
Oh, the operational security failure. Yeah.
It's wild. Usually, tools of this caliber are meticulously obfuscated. They are wrapped in complex layers of digital armor, specifically so that security researchers can't reverse engineer them or even understand their core functions. But the operators behind this campaign, they made a staggering error.
They deployed a debug version of the kit out in the wild.
Right. It's essentially the cyber equivalent of a bank robber dropping the master blueprints of the vault right there on the lobby floor on their way out.
It's a massive blunder.
Huge. And because of that mistake, the underlying code was left entirely in the clear. That's how Google learned its internal name was Karuna. But the code also revealed these highly specific code names for the different exploits inside it, and they were written in native English.
Yeah, names like Cassowary, Buffout, and Jacarutu.
Right, which reads more like a quirky indie video game than a multi-million-dollar cyber weapon.
The quirky names are definitely a sharp contrast to the technical weight of the discovery itself. Because Karuna wasn't just a single zero-day bug that someone stumbled upon. The Google report details that this framework contained 5 full iOS exploit chains.
5 full chains.
And a total of 23 distinct exploits. To put that into perspective, it was actively bypassing Apple's most advanced security mitigations. Things like pointer authentication codes, or PIF.
And Apple implemented PC specifically to secure pointers in memory, right? To make it incredibly difficult for attackers to execute arbitrary code, even if they do find a vulnerability.
Exactly. And Karuna just sliced right through it.
Wait, 23 separate exploits in one kit. That requires an astronomical amount of engineering. I mean, the craftsmanship described in source material is next level.
It really is. It's not amateur hour.
Not at all. For instance, the framework is so finely tuned that if it detects you have Apple's lockdown mode turned on, or even if you're just using private browsing, it completely bails out.
It just stops the attack immediately to avoid leaving any forensic traces.
Yeah, and it also uses unique hard-coded cookies to generate resource URLs and delivers its payloads compressed with the LZW algorithm, which that makes the data footprint incredibly small and super hard to detect on the network layer.
Which brings us to the core puzzle of this entire situation. If this is a precision-engineered, multi-million-dollar cyber weapon, why is it suddenly showing up in the wild, being used for mass, indiscriminate attacks?
To understand that, we have to look at how this code leaked down the black market over the past few years. Let's map out that proliferation timeline, because it honestly reads like a high-end sports car changing hands on the underground market.
It's a great way to look at it.
The first time this framework pops up on the radar is in February 2025. According to Google, Karuna was initially spotted being used by a customer of a commercial surveillance vendor.
And the exploit they used took advantage of a flaw in WebKit.
Right, which is essentially the engine powering Apple's Safari browser. By just visiting a compromised website, the attackers could execute code remotely without you doing a single thing.
Security teams track this specific flaw as CVE 2024-23222. And it's worth noting Apple actually patched this vulnerability in January 2024, but notably, they didn't credit any outside researchers for the discovery.
Which heavily implies they might have caught it being exploited in the wild themselves.
Highly likely. So the vehicle then moves further down the chain. By the summer of 2025, Google observed this exact same JavaScript framework hosted on compromised Ukrainian websites.
And we're talking about a wide, random assortment of sites here, from industrial equipment pages to local services and e-commerce platforms.
The mechanics here are vital to understand, because the exploits were hidden inside invisible iframes.
Okay, let's break down what an invisible iframe attack actually looks like for you, the user. Imagine you're just browsing the web on your phone, looking up a piece of equipment, or checking a local service in Ukraine. You tap a link. Hidden in the background of that seemingly normal site, completely invisible to you, is a tiny, microscopic, frame-loading, malicious code.
And the moment your Safari browser renders that hidden frame,
Karuna fires. Exactly. It bypasses Apple's memory protections and unpacks its payload. You haven't clicked download, you haven't approved any permissions, but your device is actively being compromised just by loading the page.
it is the absolute definition of a zero-click attack, or in this case, a single navigation attack. And the shift in who is deploying it is significant.
Yeah, let's talk about that shift. Now, I want to be very clear here. We are just reporting what is stated in the security research provided to us. We are not taking sides or endorsing any geopolitical claims. But Google and Kaspersky's telemetry points to a suspected Russian espionage group known as UNC 6353 utilizing this framework during the summer of 2025.
Right, we're just following the data trails the researchers laid out. But it clearly shows a massive operational shift. The tool moved from a commercial surveillance vendor to a regional espionage operation.
And the data gets even stranger from there, because by the end of 2025, this elite kit doesn't just change hands again. It completely drops off a cliff into the cybercrime underworld.
It really hits the bottom of the barrel.
Google retrieved the complete exploit kit being deployed on a massive scale by a financially motivated threat actor operating from China. The trackers call them UNC 6691, so it goes from targeted commercial surveillance to regional espionage, all the way down to mass internet scams.
In the Cyberscoop article we reviewed, the Apple-focused security researcher Patrick Wardle sums it up perfectly. He noted that it turns out even lowly cybercriminals are now abusing 0 days to hack Apple devices.
The economics of that are what makes this so alarming to me.
Oh, absolutely. The sheer expense and technical brilliance required to develop 23 distinct iOS exploits is staggering. We're talking about research and development that usually requires the budget of a nation-state intelligence agency. A financially motivated cybercrime group simply does not have the resources to build a framework like Karuna from scratch.
That brings us to the real mystery. Where did this elegant, beautifully fluid code actually come from? Because according to the press release from iVerify, there is strong evidence suggesting it resembles elite United States government framework.
The clues pointing in that direction are highly specific. According to iVerify's co-founder, Rocky Cole, first of all, the underlying codebase itself is superb. It has all the hallmarks of top-tier institutional development.
But it's the comments left inside the code by the developers that are the real giveaway, right?
Yes. Cole points out that the code features insider jokes and cultural references that are incredibly reminiscent of native English speakers working within the U.S. defense industrial base.
Wow.
Furthermore, the mechanics of these exploits link back to vulnerabilities used in an earlier campaign called Operation Triangulation.
And Operation Triangulation was a massive, highly sophisticated iOS exploitation campaign discovered by Kaspersky in 2023. And looking at the broader landscape based on our sources, Russia previously attributed that specific operation to the U.S. government.
And when Cyberscoop reached out, the NSA officially declined to comment on those allegations.
Again, we need to stress we are remaining completely impartial here. We're just laying out the breadcrumbs provided by the researchers. But those breadcrumbs are leading the security community to draw a very sobering comparison.
They really are. They're comparing this to an eternal blue moment for mobile devices.
For context on that, back in 2017, a highly classified Windows exploit developed by the NSA, known as Eternal Blue, was stolen and leaked onto the internet by a mysterious group called the Shadow Brokers.
And the fallout from the Eternal Blue leak was unprecedented. It directly fueled the WannaCry and NotPetya global cyber attacks.
Right, because the exploit allowed malware to spread autonomously across Windows networks. It caused billions of dollars in damage globally. It shut down hospitals, logistics operations, shipping companies. It democratized military-grade network exploitation overnight.
Eternal Blue fundamentally changed the threat landscape for desktop computers. What iVerify and Google are suggesting is that the Corona leak represents a similar paradigm shift, but for iOS.
It's putting military-grade mobile hacking tools into the wild.
Exactly. Now, anyone with enough technical know-how or honestly just enough cryptocurrency to buy the framework secondhand on a darknet forum can deploy capabilities that used to be the exclusive domain of global superpowers.
What fascinates me here is the sheer contradiction of what happens when these capabilities hit the open market. When this brilliant fluid exploit kit landed in the hands of those Chinese scammers we mentioned, UNC 6691, they didn't use it for high-level intelligence gathering.
No, they use it for a smash-and-grab robbery.
They set up what is known as a watering hole attack, and it was entirely focused on pornography and fake cryptocurrency websites. One of the primary traps they set up was a site mimicking a legitimate crypto exchange called WEEX. They cast a massive net, and according to iVerify, they had at least 42,000 devices.
For iOS, an ecosystem famously designed to prevent exactly this kind of mass. Automated compromise, 42,000 infected devices is a staggering metric. It forces us to examine the actual mechanics of the final payload.
Right, what actually happens on the device.
Yeah. Once Corona executes through that invisible iframe and bypasses Apple's memory protections, what does it do? Google's analysis shows that at the end of the exploit chain, a stager binary, which Google tracks as Plasmagrid and iVerify calls crypto waters, injects itself directly into a core part of the iPhone's operating system, specifically a root daemon called Powered.
And burrowing into Powered is incredibly invasive. It's a core power management process that operates deep within the system. So it gives the malware the depth system access it needs. And once it's in there, it is aggressively hunting for your money.
That's its only goal.
The malware targets the Apple Memos app, scanning your personal notes for keywords like backup phrase or bank account. It's meticulously searching for what are called BIP 39 word sequences.
Those are the standard 12 or 24-word secret seed phrases used to recover cryptocurrency wallets.
Exactly. It even goes into the saved photos on your device and actively decodes any QR codes it finds, just in case you took a screenshot of your crypto wallet credentials to save for later.
The payload is engineered for highly targeted financial extraction. It contains specific modules designed to pull data from a long list of crypto applications. MetaMask, Trust Wallet, Phantom, Uniswap, you name it. But the researchers noted something highly unusual here.
The quality drop-off.
Yes. When you compare the final payload to the elegance of the original Corona exploit kit, you see a glaring disparity in the quality and style of the code.
It's this bizarre Frankenstein monster of a cyber weapon. The underlying exploit engine bypassing Apple security is this brilliant, potentially nation-state level engineering. But the final payload, the actual module scanning your notes and stealing your crypto, has all its internal logging written in Chinese.
And even stranger, the security researchers found that some of the code comments contain random emojis. They're written in this unnatural, repetitive syntax that heavily suggests the scammers might have actually used an AI, like a large language model, to help generate the final malware payload.
It perfectly illustrates the reality of the cybercrime supply chain today. You have elite million-dollar exploitation frameworks carrying a sloppily assembled, AI-generated crypto stealer.
And to ensure they maintain control of the infected phones, even if their primary servers were taken down, the scammers built a fallback command and control mechanism. It uses a custom domain generation algorithm, or DGA.
So the malware automatically generates new web addresses to connect to.
Right. And the seed word it uses to generate those domains is, rather ironically, Lazarus.
All of this paints a very complex picture of the modern threat landscape. We've talked about leaked military code, invisible iframes, compromised Ukrainian websites, and AI-generated crypto stealers. But I think the most pressing question is how this structural shift impacts the device in your pocket right now. What are you supposed to do about it?
That requires us to look at the broader architectural philosophy of mobile security. The iVerify press release offers a very sharp critique of Apple's walled garden approach. Apple's philosophy has always been to protect iOS entirely alone. They keep the system tightly closed off, heavily restricting what software can do. And crucially, They do not allow third-party security frameworks deep access to the operating system.
The contrast there is stark when you compare it to a desktop environment. On an enterprise Windows machine or even Apple MacBook running macOS, you can install deep system-level security software. You have endpoint detection and response tools actively hunting for abnormal behavior.
But on an iPhone, because of that closed ecosystem, everyday users and even advanced corporate security teams are forced to blindly trust the manufacturer to catch everything.
And iVerify makes the point that when a framework like Karuna exists and Apple is the only one allowed to look for it, things can slip through the cracks for years before they are discovered.
The closed ecosystem definitely limits the visibility of independent defenders. However, the sources do provide clear, highly actionable advice on how to mitigate this specific threat model. First and foremost, updating your device is non-negotiable.
Absolutely. The specific WebKit vulnerabilities and privilege escalation flaws that allowed this mass exploitation were fully patched by Apple in iOS 17.3. Running an outdated operating system is essentially leaving the vault door open.
Keep your device updated. That is step one. Step two. If you consider yourself a high-risk target, maybe you're a journalist, an executive, or someone holding a significant amount of cryptocurrency, you should leverage Apple's lockdown mode.
Because this feature severely restricts certain functionalities on the device to reduce the attack surface. And as we mentioned earlier, the Karuna framework is literally programmed to check for lockdown mode and bail out if it detects it, making it a highly effective deterrent against this specific framework.
The third piece of advice from the security community is perhaps the most practical, and it has to do with how these advanced exploits actually function within the iOS architecture. The recommendation is to simply restart your phone daily.
Just turning the phone off and on again? It sounds almost too simple to work against a multi-million-dollar nation-state exploit.
But it works because of the immense difficulty of achieving what we call persistence on modern iOS devices.
Yeah.
Because Apple's core operating system is so tightly locked down, permanently embedding malicious code into the device so that it survives a reboot without causing the phone to crash or triggering secure boot alarms is incredibly hard.
So it has to hide somewhere else.
Right. Highly advanced mobile spyware often opts to live entirely within the phone's temporary volatile memory. A simple reboot wipes the RAM clean, severing the connection to the command and control server and effectively removing the active infection from your device.
Now, it doesn't patch the vulnerability, of course. If you browse back to the malicious watering hole site after the reboot, the invisible iframe will just reinfect the device. But a daily reboot breaks the chain of constant, ongoing surveillance.
It forces the attackers to burn their exploit again and again. Combine that with standard hygiene, keeping your critical passwords updated, and ensuring you have multi-factor authentication active across your accounts, and you significantly raise the cost of an attack against your device.
It really demands a shift in our collective mindset. We have to stop viewing our mobile devices as infallible appliances and start treating them as highly complex computers that require active defense and skepticism.
It is a profound shift.
We've followed the Karuna exploit kit from its origins as an elegant, fluidly engineered cyber weapon, potentially crafted by top-tier developers dropping insider jokes into the source code. We watched it leak into the commercial surveillance market, get weaponized in regional espionage campaigns, and ultimately plummet into the hands of crypto scammers using AI and emojis to silently siphon digital wallets from over 40,000 everyday users.
It exposes the terrifying life cycle and the secondary market of a modern digital weapon. It forces us to confront the reality that once code is created, it eventually finds its way into the wild. And when the targets shift from nation-states to everyday users, the defenses have to adapt.
Which leaves us with a final thought for you to mull over as you go about your day. If top-tier nation-state mobile exploits are inevitably destined to leak and become cheap commodities on the criminal black market, if they're always going to end up in the hands of criminals, will the future of our digital lives require us to completely abandon the idea of a trusted device altogether? Something to think about. Keep your phones updated, keep questioning the digital world around you, and stay safe out there.